Patrick Findaro, co-founder at Vetted Biz and Visa Franchise. I'm joined by Neil Hershman, CEO of 16 Handles. Neil, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Neil, tell me a little bit about how you transitioned from the world of finance to becoming a franchisee and then becoming a franchisor.
Yeah, it took a lot longer than the short summary, but in hindsight, it seems like an obvious path. But when I was moving through the motions, it didn't feel such. So really, coming out of finance, what I was looking for was something that I could be more hands-on with, and that's why I actually left that career. Was for another company that I had started that was more of a manufacturing business, and even that was like entrepreneurial and hands-on, but not like the way that I wanted it to be, where I could like really interact with my customers. It was a little bit more like e-com. So you have that distance. And so I thought maybe restaurant, bar, food, something in that grand scheme could make sense. And having left finance, I had saved some money. And so I was really looking to deploy that into an asset that could, potentially make more money. I started talking to a bunch of different franchisors because I liked the way that helped combat risk, like getting not necessarily a guarantee, but just the knowledge of what other stores are performing at, what their revenues are, what costs typically are, et cetera. Having that going into a business felt a lot more safe than opening my own smoothie shop and just hoping it works. And I sat down with the 16 handles at some point on a whim in between, sitting down with a
Like,
bunch of
were you like a
yeah, I was a big
customer, or how did
customer
you
of 16
pursue them?
handles. I lived in the East Village at the time and before, and I would get 16 handles for dinner. I would go to 16 handles with friends. It was just like, it was literally a 1 minute walk from my apartment. I always think back to like, how did I discover it that first time? Because, right, that's what I want to make sure keeps happening to more and more people. But
Yeah,
I have no idea how I did.
it's the
Probably.
lowest like customer acquisition,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
getting your franchisee as a
Yeah.
from your customer base.
And then like 3 years after I was a customer, I was the owner of the store I was a customer of, and I started looking up in the database, and I saw that I was like almost half a percentage point of their revenue in the year that I was which is way too much froyo, but also great, I guess. It means that it makes sense, and I actually do like what I do, right? So yeah, it was a brand that I knew and I liked, and sitting with the 16 handles owners talking about franchising at that point was really either opening a new store or potentially taking over a corporate store is where the conversation went. I just saw some kind of like opportunity with them. It felt, and truthfully, they were a little bit more hands off than the average franchisor at that point that I was speaking to, and that's just because they had kind of been with it for a decade and they had seen the rise, and then they had families and stepped back and were focused on kind of other things and maybe got bored of it. I don't have the exact answer, but I just saw opportunity, and I loved that because I've always been entrepreneurial, and so to have this balance of both a franchise that I was a customer of, that I know is successful and can be even more successful, and then also the opportunity to have some leadership, have some voice in that, rather than just being a cog in a very big machine, if that makes sense. So it was a great fit. Took over one store, worked, thought I was taking over a 10-year-old store. So had really good profits behind it. Thought I was taking it over as a passive turnkey investment. Went there for like my first day, meet the employees. And I'm sorry, I'm skipping a lot. I ended up SBA financing the acquisition. SBA is a great program for
Tell
franchise.
me about how you went about that. Was it 10% down, 20% down
No, this
cash?
was this was before that happened. But I mean, realistically, and I always talk to this about a franchisee today, like you shouldn't start a business on 90% leverage. It's not the right thing to do in my opinion. Even if yeah, even if you can pay your debt, it's like you're gonna take away a lot of what you're trying to get, which like the money you're trying to get is gonna go
And
into
you
debt
might
payments.
make decisions that you wouldn't normally make. You're probably
Exactly.
going to be less risk averse to open up the second location or
Yeah. So I really think the 60-40, 70-30 kind of splits are much, much better. And that's where I was. I think I was right in the middle. I think it was 65-35, something like that. But it was quite easy, especially because this was a well-performing store with 10 years of history of tax returns that I was taking over. So, we came up with an appropriate valuation. A lot of times these stores, trade probably on the low end at 2.5x EBITDA on the high end, maybe 4.5.
What varies? Is it based on that number of EBITDA, or how hands-on the manager is or the owner is?
So for the range, I guess it like really just depends on the deal and
Okay,
seller's motivation and buyer.
sure.
But like when you're thinking about EBITDA, right, you're usually backing out an owner's expense. So sometimes owners in these types of businesses pay themselves salary. Sometimes they actually work all the hours, and then
Yeah.
it's the opposite. You have to add in what is my implied labor cost, because that person's profit you need to reduce by whatever they would have spent had they
So you
had.
might add like 60K, 80K.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could. Yeah, there's every deal is different, right? But this was kind of a passive investment for the old owners, probably a little too passive, which is why it turned out to be a good investment for me. Is once we closed, I went in there, thought it was turnkey, started, and realized there was like a lot of work to be done. Not in the
Did you
sense.
ever have any like funny interactions with like old friends, like just coming into your
Yeah,
frozen yogurt shop?
I mean, friends were great because they would come on
Yeah,
purpose for free froyo, and
come on.
um, I ended up working that shop every day for 3 months straight, like no days off, Monday through Sunday, pretty much open through close every day. So it was nice to get the break of friends. The funny part was like people that didn't know that I took
Exactly.
over the
Old
shop.
acquaintances.
Yeah, and then I'd be checking them out. They're like, "Oh, we went to," and I'd be like, "Yeah, we did." And
My brother worked at Burger King, like corporate Restaurant Brands International, but he did a similar 3 month stint here in Miami Beach, and it's just always like so funny slash awkward, like being
yeah,
behind the counter and see someone or someone he knew a while back,
yeah, but
or coming out of the store with a Burger King
yeah,
outfit.
yeah, but it was fun, and I actually really enjoyed, like, especially working the register, because I really learned the business and the customers, and I didn't know
Yeah,
at the
what they
time,
want.
where this was going to go. But so to kind of finish the story shortly, one location became, I saw the opportunity. It was super lucrative, and when I made some system changes, when I made it a little bit more operationally efficient, it was a great investment, and so roll that into buying another one and then another one.
About how many months or years to get the second one, and then second to the third?
So the first one closed in April, and both the second and the third closed in August. So it
Wow.
was kind of towards the end of that 3 months. Now, at that point, I was going every day between the three stores. I actually wrote this is New York City. I don't know if we hit that, but this was around New York City. So all these three stores were probably within 2.5 miles of each other, 2 miles.
You're just walking around nonstop.
No, I got an electric scooter, and this was
Oh,
before electric
smarter.
scooters were cool, before Lime and like all these companies made them a real thing. I was like importing these from China. I at some point imported 5 because they were so hard to get, like good ones. And then New York City had like you can't have them go past a certain speed, so you couldn't even
So
buy the
funny.
ones that were really great. So yeah, I don't know. You go into a lot of different places and rabbit holes, but that was a fun one. But I would ride a scooter back and forth, and what was great is Department of Health would show up at a store there within 7 minutes. Always, it's like I could get anywhere for any emergency, and it was a really really fun, really great time. And
Neil, did you finance those with SBA loans, the second and third?
no, I rolled basically the summer profits out of the first one
It's
into both of
huge.
those. And one of those stores was actually like not as high performing, and now today that is the single-handed best investment. It's like
That's huge.
there was so much opportunity there, and what happened with my stores that I took over, and a lot of stores that you see around the country, is owners make back their return on investment, and so then they don't need to be as skin deep. They step away a little bit, then the next year a little bit more, and then all of a sudden the manager who was there with them for 5 years leaves for another opportunity, or because family move, whatever it is. And so now they bring in a new manager but don't fully train that person, or whatever, and they don't stay so long, and then all of a sudden it's a new manager
And
who has
all of a
no
sudden
training.
you have zero culture at the
you,
restaurant.
you have no culture. You have sometimes minimum wage employees making very high level decisions, and not to say that those people can't make good decisions, but they have no skin in the game. They're not thinking of things necessarily the same way an owner would be thinking of things, or a really great manager is thinking things. And things get out of hand, and costs are no longer under control. Customer service goes through the window, employee retention. So it's like all these things can compound themselves, and a store can still be profitable with all these issues, but you fix them, and then all of a sudden the customers notice, and your revenue goes up, your costs go down, and yeah, I was in really good shape with some of the acquisitions, and I was really all in on 16 Handles at that point. It was just a great brand with so much brand equity, so much goodwill in New York City. Customers love it. The product is so good, so unique. And frozen yogurt, like people talk about as a trend product, that there was these two waves of frozen yogurt. But if you actually look at the sales of many of these brands, they just continue to go up. So it's like, sure, the media maybe turned it into like this big phase where we were all talking about it, and then it quieted down, and then another celebrity photo came out, and so we all talked about it, or a new brand came in. But the customer base, like the tried and true customer base, continues to grow. And especially as like snacking gets healthier, this is the healthy ice cream, right? This is the healthy frozen
Yeah, I
dessert.
mean, compared to like cookies, like some of
Yeah.
these like if you go to cookie whatever franchise or corporate location, it's like 500, 1,000 calories, or they'll do it where it's like the serving recommended serving just like a quarter of the
Yeah,
cookie.
you see
It's
that a
just
lot
like,
now, is a spoonful of cookie
come
dough,
on, no
or
one's having a cookie, a
yeah.
quarter of a cookie.
Yeah. So 16 Hills is in a really great position. But I guess going back, I was just very excited about the brand and the opportunities. And at that point, I was looking for the next thing too, maybe going into the next summer or the summer after. And that was building stores, because I had kind of acquired everything that there was in the city that was, readily available. And so then I saw that there was kind of markets that I was missing. Maybe I was delivering to, one of these stores, I literally said to myself, I do so many deliveries in this area. If I opened a store and didn't even open the doors, if we just did delivery, we'd make our rent. And so I knew I had to open a store. That was just a matter of time. And so I ultimately did open that store. COVID hit, which was obviously terrible for everyone, but it also meant there was a lot of real estate available. And so I was able to take some really great leases during that time, and open additional stores. And at that point, I became the largest franchisee of 16 Handles. At some point you are looking forwards, and what's the next thing? Do I continue to single-handedly grow this brand, or do I take all the systems that I've kind of created myself on this really strong backbone? Because credit to the founders, again, a great product, great branding, great goodwill throughout the city, and all these suburbs. There was still 30 plus stores at this point. Even through COVID, none of the 16 Handles closed. So it's really strong brand.
And that's New York. It
Yeah,
wasn't like this is in Miami where it was kind of life went on after
yeah,
like a
yeah.
two
That's
month
true. Yeah,
break. Like that's impressive.
yeah. So I was looking at like 16 Handles growing faster than just I could, using kind of the systems that I helped make more efficient and modernize, let's say, and the new build out process that was a little bit more modular, so that I could plug and play it, because I knew that I was building stores and I wanted to do it more cost effectively, and a modular design is the way to do that, not to custom make everything every time. So yeah, the acquisition of the franchisor just made sense to me, and so we.
Did you like at that point? Did you like hit the cap for SBA loans, or were you? How did you finance that, if you
uh,
don't mind?
An SBA loan. Yeah, a lot of our debt is through the SBA. Also took on some additional equity investors, because this is a much larger acquisition than an individual store. Franchisors also typically trade at very high multiples, and then I wanted like a good team and a good advisors around me, and so kind of brought together some of the people that I really trusted, and then a friend, Danny Duncan, who's a famous YouTuber as well, joined me on this endeavor as a minority investor, and he really knows how to build great brands. And not that he built a similar brand to 16 Handles, but he's in 2,500 retail shops across the country. And during COVID, when everybody else was freaking out about sales, he's pumping out YouTube videos, doing $1 million of merchandise per month. So really smart person. And maybe you don't necessarily see that online, but if you're watching his video, but there's a lot more thoughtfulness that goes behind some of those things than you realize. And so has also been really helpful in kind of strategizing how to grow 16 Handles without just paying for ad space. And that's what every brand's trying to do today, right? Is we don't want to pay Meta to just throw our brand in your face as you're scrolling your feed. We want to do it in a way that feels natural, that really excites you.
You're part of a small club of franchisees that bought out the franchisor. I can think of just a few brands like Just Between Friends, Smoothie King. I think it was their franchisee out of Korea bought the brand. 7-Eleven, the franchisee out of Japan, I think. And there might be just a few other
Well,
ones.
those are all big ones. So, hopefully we'll get to that size
Yeah,
very
we'll
quickly.
have you back on in 10 years,
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? I really do feel like 16 Handles can be a national brand, and probably should have been, but there just wasn't the right team focused on that expansion. And so instead of pushing that, it kind of just organically grew through really customers. A lot of the franchisees, how did you hear about 16 Hills? We just went to the city and got Froyo, and we said, this place is great. Yeah, I think right now we're kind of on the early path of this growth, but we're set to double in size in the next 18 months as a franchise, and then hopefully
In
again
terms of unit count?
in terms of unit count. Yeah.
That's great.
But also in revenues, like our new stores, we expect to keep at a very high performance. What's very easy to sell 16 handles is our average unit volume is so much higher than anyone else in frozen dessert. Not even just frozen yogurt brands, but even when I secretly look up our FDDs from some of the ice cream shops and such that everybody would know, we just perform really, really well because our customers come back multiple times a week. It's just that simple. The product is addictive, but not terribly bad for you like other brands. And so people don't mind getting Froyo, Friday and Saturday, and then also on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's just like, it becomes part of your routine and
social thing to do.
Yeah.
Could you tell a little bit more about the financials for our audience to the extent that you're comfortable and if it's disclosed?
Yeah, I think in our I guess 2024 FTD, we look back at 2023. We do just the regular year, January through December. Our top store is nearly at 1.9 million at this point, which is just like a ton of yogurt by weight. But when you think about that and the types of margins that QSRs earn, we tend to feel that we're on the higher margin side of QSRs because if you think about it, every brand is talking about automation, right? We're self-serve frozen yogurt. It's like the machine has always been automated, and then we've taken out the employee element of it. So we're able to operate the stores with very minimal labor. It's like you walk into a Chick-fil-A or a Chipotle, I don't know, 10, 15 employees. Just
and
visible
payroll for a Chick-fil-A is like 50 to 100 plus depending on the site.
Yeah. So, and if you walk in our stores, we want that human touch point. We want that like customer service element. And when you walk into a premium experience, you expect that as a consumer. So we definitely value that. But can that be done with 2 or 3 people on shift? Absolutely. I think it's a great business, and we're really excited about where we're going. Our average unit volume is, I think, in that $715,000 range off the top of my head.
That's nearly double one of your competitors on the West Coast. I think it's more like 350.
Yeah,
another frozen yogurt brand.
Exactly. So you said it, not me. But that's kind of how we feel too. Is if you look at the other Froyo shops, and we don't feel that we're just a Froyo shop. Like we think we're a little bit more than that. We call ourselves a soft serve shop, and there's other brands that have been in Italian ice and been really successful, and soft serve ice cream and have been, and it's like it's the same machine. So there's no reason that we can't do it, and we have our own creamery that's capable of creating competing all natural better product that these brands specialize in. So 16 Hills is for everyone. We'll have all those products, and we'll continue to evolve on that. On the vegan side, we were the launch partner for Oatly, which is probably the top selling oat milk brand across the US for their soft serve. It's still the only brand that has a bunch of different flavors with them, working directly with their team that developed the oat milk that's in every single grocery store, every single Starbucks. So we'll continue to be at the forefront of those, and that's part of the New York City brand culture, right? Is like we just have more opportunities. There's a lot of there's a lot of brands that are either already here or striving to kind of get connected here. So we have really great opportunities, and same on the media partnership side. Is like this month our flavor launch we launch a new flavor on the 16th of every month. 16 handles, keeps the menu fresh always. This month our launch is with Warner Brothers Dune 2 or Dune Part 2, their new release. It's called Dune Spice, and it's coconut lemon saffron. The movie's all based on this
I'm missing Dune.
spice.
I've read the book. I saw the first one. I still need to go to the second.
Yeah, so
that's great marketing.
But now you get
any fan's definitely gonna go try that out.
Yeah, and they're great flavors. Like we don't miss.
It better be good. I mean, if it's saffron.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are we talking about in terms of opening one up?
Yeah, the range varies a lot, right? Are you taking a second gen space? Is it a new development? What is the landlord improvement budget versus what work is the landlord doing? And what's nice is that's the side of franchising that I really love, is building these stores cost effectively and quickly. And so that's what I'm really attached to for our franchisees now. The range varies, I think, on the the published range is 42,000 to around 600,000 towards the high end. If you're, buying all brand new fixtures plus going all out with a really big space and having to do all the work yourself with no TI budget coming back, et cetera. So yeah, we really strive for franchisees being right in the middle of that though. And a lot of them are able to kind of get into the middle of the range. And there's a
You
lot of
probably
space.
open much faster than some other, restaurant food type concepts.
Yeah, especially we moved all of our millwork to a modular design that is made in a single factory in bulk. So one brings down the cost, but two means that you're buying SKUs. We're not customizing anything really. And the huge benefit to that is it's like, why would you have your topping bar cut? Self-serve frozen yogurt, the thing is we have so many toppings that which make the brand. They make the experience something you can't get at home. But you have to cut out all these specific topping bar holders within a Korean counter in our stores, a really nice white stone counter, because again, it is upscale, it is premium. So it has to look and feel that way. And it does. But to have a local contractor try and do that is going to take them an extra month, and they're going to charge you an arm and a leg because they're going to be learning the process as they're doing it. Whereas, I don't know, let's just cut the countertop into 3 sections. That way we can always corner them if we're going into a wide space that's not deep versus a deep space that's not wide. And then let's just make a bunch of them. And that way we can really bring down the cost for our franchisees. So we've done that. As we grow faster, we'll continue to bring down cost, because to me, the value is turning a single unit operator into a multi-unit operator and not trying to, capture them up front. And you hear these kind of stories about franchisors who, force you to use a certain contractor, and then they're earning 20% off that contractor. And they're really trying to capitalize on their franchisees building stores. And
There's
it's
a
just,
lot of fitness franchises like F45, which I don't know if it went bankrupt or it's on the brink, but it was like to open one, it was like something like 200K went to the franchisor,
yeah,
like franchise fee and like pre-opening cost. And there's a few other fitness concepts as well as food concepts where they get so much money up front on the franchise fee and the equipment package and the supplies, and it kind of chokes the franchisee.
yeah, totally.
They're
And the harder, definitely a harder, longer ROI. And then there's that sentiment and that culture of just like, you're always, that's just not what we're selling. Ice cream, we're selling, like we call it cups of happiness, and literally our mission is to create happiness. So it doesn't make any sense to me to grow that way. Now we are quite selective in our growth, which I think has been helpful, especially from a distribution side. Nobody realizes how hard it is to get unique products all across the country, especially when you're opening, a few stores at a time. And we're not going into any market and immediately opening 10 stores, because that's a big amount of capital, and you need the right person who's got that capital to help you do that. So instead, it tends to be, 2 or 3 unit operators opening, and they need to have access to all the products at the same price, at the reduced prices that we're getting in the Northeast, where we already have 30, 40 stores, right? And it's the only thing that's
it's a
fair
lot of
is that
pressure for
they
you
have,
to
yeah,
negotiate.
exactly. So we are very selective in territories, and we really feel the 3 big cities in Texas have been good to us, and
I can
are going to be
imagine.
good to us. Dallas, Houston, Austin, and we're opening a store in Dallas in 3 weeks. So yeah, very excited about that one.
How about down here in Florida?
Yeah, we've got growth along the East and the West Coast coming. So
Nice.
nothing in
Nothing in
Miami
Miami
yet.
planned?
I think the rents are
It should cool off. Broward, for a while, Broward County, right north of us, where Fort Lauderdale is, was
yeah.
like half Miami. I don't know how it is now. That was like an old report, but you go further up or you go on the West Coast and it's a fraction of
We're going
Miami.
further up, but Fort Lauderdale is also, we're playing around with right now with some
I
franchisees. But yeah,
I did see
Jupiter.
Miami. We work with this data provider with SBA loans, Lumos Data, and they did analysis of default rates, and Miami had one of the highest default rates for SBA loans.
Yeah.
It was
I
like
mean, it's hard.
3x the national average. It was nuts.
It's hard in cities because you have to make sure your brand shines through, and then you have to make sure your rent is controlled. And one of the nice things about New York is at least all the spaces have basements. So what you're not getting in square footage on the ground floor, at least you get basements. I don't think anything in Miami has a basement. Or anywhere in Florida, or anywhere really south of New York. It feels like it's really a New York townhouse type style where everything has a basement to it. So like a lot of my stores are smaller footprints on the ground floor than the average store, but then have a basement, and now they're all of a sudden larger storage footprints than the average store. And you don't usually, pay for that basement storage because when you first take it over, they're not they look like a basement in New York that's been there for 100
It's
years.
worth more to you than some other
Yeah.
renter
Yeah,
or
so
leasing.
so unfortunately for a lot of concepts, in states like Florida, they end up having to take kind of their more maximal square footage, and then when you end up in somewhere like Miami, where the price per square foot is significantly higher than neighboring territories, it just doesn't make as much sense right away, unless you're trying to make a brand move. But for 16 Handles, we have such strong branding as is, and such a strong loyal customer base that it's not the best use of capital right now.
Makes sense. Neil, is there anything that we didn't talk about today that would be relevant for prospective franchisees, or we have a lot of people in the franchising space that listen to this?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time, right? Because rates are still high. So when you think about starting a business and starting a franchise, the great thing is it's easier to get an SBA loan for a franchise. So I think you get that advantage. But when you're evaluating franchises, you really have to think about the margin that you end up with versus the interest that you're going to be paying, at least for the next year, 2 years. And I was reading that a lot of businesses struggled because they took debt and didn't expect rates to go up, and then all of a sudden their debt payments are significantly more than they thought they were. And that's the disadvantage potentially to SBA, is it is a floating
Mostly
rate.
variable.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have to really evaluate the franchises you're interested in. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to call and speak to other franchisees. And some franchisors help facilitate that and want you to speak to their franchisees. Others I've heard are a little bit less flexible in that, and kind of expect you to, or kind of want you to have to do a lot of work to get talking to their franchisees, which is a bad look from the beginning. But
Yeah, it's kind of a red flag.
yeah, I think
Or
that's
where they say don't do it because they're so
yeah,
busy.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a really important step that you shouldn't listen to your franchisor on if they're telling you not to do, is like, you should go into the other shops of the brand that you're looking to buy into, and find out what that franchisor's experience, that franchisee's experience is, and truly if they're earning a return on investment. And look, not all locations are the same, right? Some places will make money, and some places will make a lot more money, and you don't know which one necessarily you're going to be, but you can make decisions that impact that. And if you go to a store and you say, this is a terrible center, everything is closed here, there's a closed Bed Bath and Beyond, and vacant grocery store, whatever it is, and you're wondering why that franchisee is having a bad experience, well, then you can at
Look
least
around.
excuse it, and then go to the one that's in the Whole Foods anchored center, and they're performing much better. And now you really get a feel of like, okay, this is what's important when I do this brand, is location. And that's going to be true of really any retail store. But knowing that location is one thing, but like knowing the neighboring tenants, that's something that we really focus on at 16 Handles, is synergizing with the neighbors, is like
What's the ideal neighboring tenant that
restaurants.
you would have? Like, okay.
Yeah, restaurant. We love big
What type of restaurant?
main street with it doesn't really matter. It's just like, as long as they're turning tables, we will synergize with each other so well, because a lot of times, especially nicer restaurants, they don't want you sitting there ordering dessert, because
For like an
dessert's like
$8
$10.
dessert when it was a $40 steak.
Exactly. They'd rather turn the table and have it ready for the next person. Whereas we're earning a business off people spending about $10 per person.
That's a
And
lot.
and they love it. And they come with friends and family, and so we help bring more people to the area, but then we also help bring the people outside of the restaurant so that the restaurant can continue to turn tables faster. And we built a business on this. And so when we can be on a main street with a bunch of restaurants, that's like the number one location. And all of our stores that are doing over $1 million are exactly that, surrounded by restaurants or some kind of nighttime venue, movie theaters, things like that are just drawing people to the area. Whereas, probably the locations that I fear the most when they're sent through are like the shopping centers that are mostly filled with like boutique shops and kind of like the off-branded places that close at 7 p.m. because it's just not gonna, this our prime time is between 7 and 10 p.m. And so you don't want to drive to a shopping center that looks closed with just one shop open. I mean, location's important, but it's not just like vehicles per day or any one metric tells you the full story. It's actually going and spending time there. And I make our franchisees go to all their spaces before they sign a lease on Friday afternoon, on Saturday night, on Sunday night. It's like, those are our busiest days. That place better be like, yeah, there better be people there, because otherwise you ain't attend that lease.
Neil, what's the best way for people to reach out if they're interested in opening a 16 handles?
Yeah, we have a franchising website called own16handles.com, which has a bit more information, but really, truthfully, the best information is kind of helped for the people who we're really talking to. So reach out, fill out the form. You'll get a franchise brochure and an FDD if it makes sense. And yeah, we're very proud of our FDD and the numbers that our stores perform at. And so, you know, we're more than happy to entertain any discussion. And I love expansion. Like, I love building these stores, and I hope I get to help more people. And we've been really lucky in finding a few really great franchisees over the past year and a half that are all building stores today and getting stores open. And we've had some openings. We have some more openings. This is kind of our favorite opening time, right in the spring. So it's a very exciting month and 2 months for us. So, but we're ready to get set for, you know, the August openings and the next spring openings. So there's never a bad time to reach out.
Well, there you have it. Neil Hershman, CEO of 16 Handles. Own a16handles.com. We'll include that in the show notes. Neil, thanks again for joining.
Yeah, thanks.